Bentley TNT 600 vs Harley-Davidson Street Rod vs Kawasaki Z650 vs Suzuki SB650 vs Yamaha FZ07. 3 years ago in its maiden season, the Yamaha FZ07 came out with both 80mm pistons blazing to take the win from 5 other tasty middleweights, including the KTM 690 Duke, in our 2014 middleweight mash-up 6-way shootout. Last year, we threw the Yamaha in with the Duke 690 again and watched as the Yamaha lost out to the Duke by the slimmest of margins on its way to beating up, barely, the new Suzuki SV. Harley's new street rod, the new Kawasaki Z650 and the Bentley TNT 600. The fact that these new players exist tells us affordable, fun, practical middleweights is an important category for the manufacturers. Not to mention being some of our absolute favorite everyday motorcycles to tear around upon. Bentley TNT 600. It really is too bad about the TNT, because there really is a lot to like. These are stamped out by Tianjin in China, but design was by Bentley's people in Italy. The undertail exhausts give away the fact that the design's about a decade old now, though only recently offered in the USA, but the whole package has aged well. There's a genuine steel trellis frame tying the cast aluminum lower frame plates and swing arm and inverted 50mm fork together, along with their full-size wheels and tires. Overkill 320mm discs squeezed by Bentley branded 4-piston knock-off Brembo calipers give this one great stopping power when you give the lever a big squeeze. Matter of fact, the whole bike is overkill. The 50mm fork sliders, for example, are clamped in triple trees that may have just been handed down from the 1130 TNT triple of yore, and the whole plot, full of 4 gallons of gas, winds up tipping yon scales at 512 pounds, which makes it 123 pounds heavier than the lightest bike here, the Kawasaki Z650. That's not light, but then this is the only bike here packing a 599cc stock inline 4-cylinder, which should make enough power to mask that weight. In theory. The Bentley's wants to be more grand tour than out and out sport bike, and in that role, it does pretty well. It has a firm enough ride that's always compliant, its cantilevered rebound adjustable shock there on the right does nice work. The seat's comfortable enough, the tapered aluminum handlebar puts the handles in the right spots, engine vibes are under control, and the overall fit and finish is so nice that, right until you ride away, you'd never think you weren't about to be in for a treat on a perfectly nice exotic European motorcycle. The claim is 82 horsepower, which would be semi-respectable for a torquey, mid-rangey for a banger. Unfortunately the Bentley's engine only gets to 70.4 horsepower on a rear-wheel dyno, and not until 11,300 revolutions per minute. And at no point is its torque output anything resembling respectable. Max torque is a limp handshake 34.4 pounds to foot, and you don't even get that till 10,200 revolutions per minute. The torque king of the group, the Yamaha FZ07, for comparison, is cranking out 46.6 pounds to foot at 6,500 revolutions per minute. Trying to hang with the other kids in the curvery stuff, the TNT builds revs painfully slowly till the tach approaches 7,000. Then, when you roll out of the power for an approaching curve, what feels like a really heavy crank just wants to keep spinning, providing very little engine braking. If you hop on the Bentley and ride it like you stole it, that is, keeping the tach between 7 and 11,000 revolutions per minute the whole time, it's fairly spunky and fun to ride. But constantly revving it out grows old in a hurry when you're commuting, and it's not made any easier that the bike changes gears in an old-fashioned way. Clutch pull is not light, and shift lever throws feel long and sloppy after climbing off the other bikes here, because they are. As for the shifting, you could get used to it and build character. As for the engine, we can't help thinking there's a great motor in there yearning to breathe free via the right engine map, but the TNT is such a small batch item in the US, we can't find anything to make it right. The Bentley seems so close to being a great little exotic bike, but as delivered, it's so far away. Harley-Davidson Street Rod. The street rod won the cool factor on our scorecard with the solid 88.5%, fully 6 points more than the Kawasaki Z650 in second place. The biggest engine in the test, 750cc, didn't make more torque than those two, but the rod does crank out its comparable 45 pounds-to-foot at only 4,100 revolutions per minute, which gives it really broad, Harley-esque power band. Less Harley-esque is that it revs on out to 8,800 revolutions per minute and 63 horses. It's a really fun motor that reminds some of us of the 90-degree twin in the Suzuki, which squeezed 72 horses from its 645cc. With the wheelbase 3 or 4 inches longer than the Japanese entries, and carrying a bunch more weight, the HD still turns and burns surprisingly well, with the least trail of any of these at just 3.7 inches and nicely balanced suspension at both ends. It's even got okay ground clearance, though it will start dragging its peg feelers before the other bikes. Suzuki SB650. Revitalized and renamed back to SB650 for the 2017 model year, the SV remains a crowd favorite, partly because of its illustrious history, partly because it's the closest thing you can get to a Ducati monster without buying a Ducati. Even though it was disguised for a number of years behind aliases like Gladius and SFV, it remains as familiar as your mom's old army boots. Matter of fact, it won the ergonomics, comfort category on our scorecard, along with clutch, transmission. There's also high praise for its suspension, a category it lost by a mere 0.5% to the second-place finisher. That 90-degree V-twin produces the most horsepower, cranking out nearly 72 horses, and 45 pounding-feet of torque is right there in the ballpark too. Carrying a few extra lbs compared to its newer Japanese rivals, riding on a longer wheelbase than any bike but the Harley, and with more trail than any of them, 4.1 inches, the SV feeds back a sense of reassuring, stable handling to everyone who rides it, and still steers quick enough. And the runner-up is Kawasaki Z650. That parallel twin isn't close to all new, but the bike Kawasaki built around it is. If imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, then it looks like Kawasaki was a big enough fan of the Yamaha FZ07 to replicate it right down to its semi-trellis steel tube frame with MotoGP-style controlled flexors that reach down to carry the front engine mounts, and banana swing arm. In normal use and even at elevated speeds, the Kawasaki mid-range stonk feels as strong as any bike in this group. It's got better suspension than the FZ, with greater control, and its brake feel is the most confidence-inspiring of this group. It also has a contemporary and fresh appearance, with its screen trellis frame and a resting highlight on its future forward visage. If you did check the dyno chart, though, you'd see that Kawasaki's 649cc parallel twin lags quite a bit behind the others. It's 10 horses down on the SV and 8 behind the FZ07. You can also feel it trying harder than the other bikes. The price it pays for being lightest is that a bit more engine vibration finds its way up into the grips and pegs. The winner and still the middleweight champ. Yamaha FZ07. It doesn't make more peak horsepower than the Suzuki, but the FZ does use its 40 extra cc to bust out just a bit more torque in the critical 6,000 to 8,000 revolution per minute range, which makes it more thrilling to ride in the hands of experienced riders. Anyway, the FZ engine carried the win on the scorecard, along with its brakes, which are 4-pot calipers, even though Duke said they feel a bit wooden. The Yamaha took its lumps in the handling and suspension categories, where it tied for second and finished third, respectively. With the least trail, shortest wheelbase, and its light weight,